What's about One Piece is the swordsman. We get to see different types of styles and different ways they use haki. But what is a black blade, and why do only 2 swordsmen in the whole series possess this blade? That is because the black blade is the mark of the strongest swordsman of the era. Whoa, no. When it comes to swordsmen in One Piece, it is a weird topic because there are some people in One Piece who are not primarily swordsmen, such as Rayleigh, Big Mom, and King. We also have people who are strictly swordsmen, such as Zoro, Shanks, and Mihawk, and of course Vista. I think that the Black Blade can only be awakened by people who strictly follow the way of the sword. So for people like Big Mom and Rayleigh, I don't think they would be the types of people to possess a Black Blade. Only a true master swordsman can achieve this feat. How are black blades made? They are forged through the many battles a wielder goes through. These obviously would have to be very difficult fights in order for you to grow as a swordsman and for you and your blade to get stronger. However, we also know that black blades have something to do with haki. I think it's a mix of both, and it takes both incredible haki and master swordsmanship in order to raise your blade to the final and most important stage. Armament haki is by far the most important haki for any swordsman to learn. It makes their blades sturdy enough for battle and strong enough to slay their opponents. In Dressrosa, we see Zoro use armament haki to turn his blade temporarily black. This lets us, the readers, know that the black color of the black blade is not just from the experience, but haki is definitely a factor. This makes sense because the more battles you go through, the stronger your haki will become. The stronger your haki, the stronger protection you can apply to your blade. It's important to first understand haki in general. Haki is your spirit or your will manifested. This presents itself in every living being in One Piece in the form of armament haki. We also know some people have such strong willpower that they possess the haki of a king, the haki of a conqueror. Today we will only be talking about armament haki and conqueror's haki. These two forms of haki are 2 of the 3 components for forging a black blade, but the third component is not as straightforward. A swordsman must treat every nick on their sword as a disgrace. The relationship and the trust between you and your blade must be perfect or you will never have a black blade. Zoro once referred to Shusui as heavy, as though it were heavier than his other swords, literally and spiritually. I believe that Zoro was trying to allude to the fact that the will of Ryuma lives within Shusui, and that's why it feels heavier to him. It makes sense because we know Shusui was forged into a black blade after Ryuma went through many battles protecting Wano, the city of gold. So his will must have completely manifested itself in the blade to the point that it became one with the sword itself. Swords can sense their user's will, and some swords have a will of their own, such as Enma. In Wano, we see the eternal graves of Ringo. When the people of Ringo are born, they're gifted a katana and use it their entire lives, and they use it as a grave marker when they pass away. Even though a lot of them are legendary weapons, they treat their blade like a companion and carry it into the afterlife, showing that the people of Wano, like Ryuma, cherish their blades, and it's probably part of the reason why Ryuma was able to conquer his blade. I believe during the fight against King, Enma hinted at what Zoro needs to do to become stronger. Zoro needs to believe in himself and in his blade. To feel no doubt is to have true strength. Zoro needs to be willing to die in order to become the strongest, even if it means killing himself. Your will to be the strongest must overcome your will to live. You must conquer the blade. You must conquer the way of the sword. In the battle against Mr. One, Zoro may have tapped into his latent haki, who was able to cut through steel. But how did he do this? Zoro used something similar to the voice of all things, except instead of listening for a voice, Zoro could feel the breath of all things. I believe the breath of all things is the ability that master swordsmen can achieve in order to cut whatever they desire. With the breath of all things, Zoro was able to decide whether or not to cut the leaves or to slice the boulder. He exerted his will onto the blade and controlled his cut. This was the first time Zoro used haki, except it wasn't just haki. This ability was Zoro's first step into understanding what it means to be a master swordsman. Zoro's sensei alluded to this fact and said that there are swordsmen out there who can cut everything and cut nothing whenever they desire. That is the ultimate exertion of willpower, to decide how your blade will affect other things. Being a master swordsman isn't about just cutting things, even though it sounds silly. If you do not learn how to cut nothing, you won't be able to cut anything. So let's recap. With armament haki, you can layer your sword with a protective layer of armor. The relationship with your blade is crucial to understand how to truly cut. And lastly, conqueror's haki, the strongest form of willpower. With the combination of these 3 components, any swordsman with the will of a king can forge their blade into a black blade. If you do not possess the king's haki, you are definitely not worthy of being the world's strongest anything, especially not the strongest swordsman. Conqueror's haki is the most important step. It's the haki you need to permanently change the grade of your sword. It's the only willpower that is strong enough to last hundreds of years. Ryuma lived hundreds of years ago and his blade blade is still black. Think about it. Inherited will is a prevalent theme in One Piece. That is why Ryuma's blade remains black hundreds of years after his death. Ryuma's will lives on inside the blade of Shusui, and it's why Zoro cannot possess it anymore. Zoro is not worthy of Shusui because it was not forged through Zoro's battles. The black blade is a representation of many things. Strong willpower, a strong connection between man and sword, and the hard work put into each and every battle. The reason the blade can stay permanently black is because of the strong will of its user, the will of a conqueror. Once a swordsman can conquer the way of the sword, then his blade will never break, his blade will never bend, the sword will never waver, just like the will of its user. If you do not possess the haki of a king, if you are not willing to die for your dream, you will never see it bear fruit. This makes perfect sense because conqueror's haki is the one type of haki you cannot specifically train. It's the type of haki that grows stronger as the wielder gets stronger. So after many long battles, your haki will grow, and after many long battles, your blade can turn black. These two things coincide with each other. Now we have to talk about why the black blade is the mark of the strongest swordsman. Only two characters to our knowledge have ever possessed black blades, Ryuma and Mihawk. Mihawk has one of the 12 supreme grade swords, yet he refers to his black blade as the strongest. That is because the black blade is only possessed by the strongest swordsman in the world. There is no blade in this world stronger than Yoru until Zoro surpasses Mihawk. Ryuma was a sword god of his era, and Mihawk is the world's strongest swordsman. We don't know for sure if these two have conqueror's haki, but there is a very strong chance they do, because Zoro has it and he is working to surpass Mihawk and become the new sword god. And in the Monsters One-Shot series, Ryuma has something called the Greatest Warrior's Soul, which could be an allusion to conqueror's haki. In the battle against King, Zoro was amazed that Oden was able to use Enma so casually. Using so much haki was draining Zoro horribly, and he couldn't stabilize his haki flow. But Enma is basically telling Zoro he can't be scared of